Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump unveiling a trade deal with the Philippines, a key U.S. ally facing Chinese aggression. What's in the deal and what the president is saying about criminal referrals by Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard. President Trump's Labor Department is reviewing scores of regulations. We have more on some of the proposed changes coming up. A new report estimates that Republicans' new tax laws will cost $3.4 trillion over 10 years. But Republicans say it doesn't show the big picture. And what's happening on Capitol Hill today? Louisville, Kentucky, dropping its sanctuary city policy. The mayor explains his decision, and Attorney General Pam Bondi reacts. Russian and Ukrainian officials are set to hold another round of peace talks tomorrow. Why the Kremlin agrees to a low-level meeting only, saying the presidents can't meet at this time.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. President Trump announcing a trade deal with the Philippines as President Marcos becomes the first Southeast Asian head of state to meet Trump in his second term. The Philippines is a key U.S. partner, particularly in the Pacific region, where China has been trying to expand its influence. Joining us now live is NTD's Washington correspondent, Marie Otsu. Marie, good afternoon. What's in the president's latest trade announcement?
Good afternoon, Don. Following his meeting with President Marcos of the Philippines, President Trump today just announced that the Philippines will be paying a 19% tariff, while the U.S. will be paying a 0% tariff. This announcement comes just after the two world leaders touted ties and President Trump expressed optimism about an upcoming trade deal. Take a listen.
Our strongest, closest, most reliable ally has always been the United States.
We're very close to finishing a trade deal, big trade deal, actually.
This meeting comes just a couple weeks after President Trump sent out a flurry of letters to the world leaders threatening new tariff rates if their countries fail to reach a trade deal with the U.S. before August 1st. The Philippines is expected to face a 20% tariff on any goods it imports to the U.S. when the August deadline arrives. Don?
And Marie, what's the president's latest response to the Director of National Intelligence sending criminal referrals to the DOJ?
President Trump, when asked about this, says he believes that former President Obama should be the top target for a potential DOJ probe. Take a look.
This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. They did things that nobody's ever even imagined, even in other countries. And we have all of the documents. And from what Tulsi told me, she's got thousands of additional documents coming.
This comes after the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, confirmed that she made criminal referrals to the FBI and Department of Justice about the findings of the documents she released last Friday. She called the evidence a, quote, treasonous conspiracy in 2016 committed by officials at the highest level of government. Don, back to you.
Okay, Marie, thank you very much. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent will be meeting his Chinese counterpart next week in Sweden. They're going to discuss possibly extending a tariff deadline. Here's what Bessent told Fox Business this morning.
China, that deal expires on August 12th, and I'm going to be in Stockholm on Monday and Tuesday with my Chinese counterparts, and we'll be working out and what is likely an extension then. I think trade's in a very good place with China. We're going to be talking about a lot of the other things that our countries can do together. Hopefully, we can see the Chinese pull back on some of this glut of manufacturing that they're doing and concentrate on building a consumer economy.
The Treasury Secretary says he also wants to warn China about buying sanctioned Russian and Iranian oil and aiding Russia's war against Ukraine. Besson says he believes U.S. relations with China have moved to a new constructive level. The Treasury Secretary also says he'll be in touch with European counterparts and announce a rash of trade deals with other countries. AstraZeneca plans to spend $50 billion to expand manufacturing and research capabilities in the U.S. This marks the latest big investment by a pharmaceutical company reacting to President Trump's tariff policy. President Trump today thanked the company during his meeting with the Philippine president. Trump is pushing companies to make more of their products in the U.S., and he wants U.S. drug prices to drop to levels seen in other parts of the world. Here's the story.
AstraZeneca plans to invest $50 billion in the U.S. by 2030. The Anglo-Swedish drugs giant said Monday that the money will fund a new factory in Virginia and expand other facilities in states including California. Announcing the investment plans, AstraZeneca chief Pascal Soriot said prices did need to equalize. He said drug charges elsewhere would have to rise so that other countries contribute more to research and development costs. Exactly what Trump plans on tariffs remains unclear.
Pharmaceuticals will be tariffed probably at the end of the month.
He's repeatedly threatened to impose duties on the sector, but has also said that firms will be allowed up to 18 months to get their act together. In a statement issued by the company, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said Trump's tariffs will end America's long reliance on imported medicines. AstraZeneca's investment follows similar moves by European rivals like Roche, Sanofi and Novartis. US players including Eli Lilly have also stepped up domestic spending. AstraZeneca says its plan will create tens of thousands of new jobs, without giving a specific number.
And joining us now to discuss President Trump's meeting with the Philippine president is Mike Leon, Director of Strategy, Free and Equal Elections Foundation, and host of Can We Please Talk podcast. And Tony Kinnett, national correspondent, The Daily Signal, and host of Tony Kinnett Cast radio show and podcast. So good to see you both again. Tony, I'll start with you. What's your overall assessment of the Marcos Trump meeting today, with discussions focusing on strengthening the U.S.-Philippines alliance and the announced trade deal?
Well, first of all, Don, Mike, always good to be back with you guys. This is quickly becoming my favorite segment of the week. Regarding a Filipino trade deal with the United States, I'd say this is a very welcome advance, not just for economic reasons, but also for national security and diplomatic reasons, given the aggression of China in the Taiwan Straits, the South China Sea in general, and the wider Pacific Ocean environment. It's important that the United States is able to strengthen ties with the Filipino government, as we've seen similarly in the British ties to reaffirming certain trade strategies in Malaysia, for example, over the last 5 years. I think that what we need to keep an eye on here, though we currently see a lot of economic prosperity that is starting to come out of this developing area of the world, I think that the cultural unrest that would occur from certain aid routes being cut off, were China to feel its oats, start getting involved militarily in the Pacific, is something that needs to be considered very seriously. And so it's not really a surprise. This is the first major move by the Trump administration in brokering one of these Indo-Pacific partnership deals. And I really hope this continues in the near future.
So, Mike, your overall thoughts and reacting to President Marcos saying the U.S. is the Philippines' most reliable ally.
Yeah, first off, good to see you guys as always on this Tuesday afternoon. This is, I'll echo a lot of the things that Tony said. This is going to be a lot of agreement in this segment, because we got to start with the overarching premise, right? That there's a global superpower in that area of the world right now that is our adversary. It's our chief adversary. So it is incumbent upon this administration, or any U.S. administrations, to treat that as such. And this is President Trump. He met with Indonesia a few weeks ago. They worked out a trade deal. Now we're seeing this with respect to the Philippines and the President Marcos coming here on this 3-day visit. One of my highest takeaways, Tony and Don, was, hearing Pete Hegseth's comments about Monday about the money that they'll start pouring in from the exercises, military exercises, to help the Filipino army. Specifically, they're the closest, neighbor to Taiwan. If China were to invade Taiwan, which some experts would say could happen in 26 and 27, we would heavily rely on the Philippines to help us with respect to potentially defending Taiwan if we were to get involved in that conflict. So seeing that take place today, and the president got asked about that, and President Marcos as well. It was a two-parter question. And he said, look, I don't care what China really kind of thinks about this. Like, this is what we're doing. And it's different than what Duarte, who used to be the Filipino president, the relationship that he had with China. This is a different stance. There's been a lot of aggression from China, to Tony's point, in the South Sea towards the Philippine Navy. And so, you know, we're seeing this aggression, and this is our longest standing partner in that area. And it's good to see that the relationship is strengthening after today.
So, Tony, I have to ask you, the U.S. is seeking stronger alliances in the region. But the elephant in the room is, at least for me, is tariffs going to make that process more difficult?
So just to be completely open and transparent here, there is a contingent here. There's a condition. If tariffs are used as leverage to negotiate a better buy-in from a country for military alliances, like we've seen with NATO, we've seen from the, again, the individuals over in that particular council, especially from the Netherlands, arguing very passionately towards paying one's fair share, then they can be a very effective tool. However, if it is the more Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick perspective on tariffs forever, I think that's going to be a very, very bad approach to negotiating in the region. Again, I do believe that there are some technological aspects of Southeast Asian industrial capacity that do need to be reshored to the United States, or more safely in Taiwan. I think that is, you could argue, a just as important a national security piece of infrastructure as steel manufacturing and refining here in the United States. However, I do believe that by encouraging a strong partnership in which the United States is the older brother, again, maybe a more Teddy Rooseveltian approach to foreign policy than a George H.W. Bushian or a George W. Bushian approach, I think that's going to be a long-term success that not only improves living standards because of economic stability, hopefully sans tariffs, but also by strengthening diplomatic and military buy-in. Again, as Mike pointed out so clearly, that President Marcos is doing far better than prior administrations in the Philippines.
So, Mike, you mentioned the major superpower in the region, which is China. So what is your interpretation? I don't know if you watched that meeting. President Trump saying that he doesn't mind if the Philippines gets along with China, while mentioning magnets coming from China to the U.S. How do you interpret what that means?
Yeah, that's a good question, Don. And I did watch a lot of the press conference and the back and forth. Some of it got on some tangents, and we didn't actually talk about some of the things. But the parts that we did talk about, which is that part that you just mentioned, Don, which is about Trump saying specifically, like, look, it's important to maintain relationships with adversaries. You know, this is a good point and a funnel to Can We Please Talk in the latest episode, because I just had a former Deputy Secretary of State on the program during the Obama and Bush administration, somebody that worked for the State Department that was very heavily involved in the Indo-Pacific. And this is prior to, obviously, President Marcos coming to the U.S. And there's a different strategy and approach to President Trump to what he's trying to do, right? Maybe he doesn't treat adversaries as full adversaries, although we're starting to see the 180 that he's doing with respect to Vladimir Putin right now. But he's always maintained this position of like, why aren't we talking to them? You know, Rich Ganell said this recently in a podcast, like the previous administration, the Biden administration, didn't want to talk to any adversaries. We're actually going to go try to talk to adversaries, excuse me. So, you know, back to Tony's point, like the negotiating ploy in all of this with the Philippines is about, there's a military advantage to it. Yes, we can negotiate the tariffs, but you got to help us in case China does something in that region. But also, you're an independent country. That's your country. If you want to have a relationship with China, we're not going to stop you from that. What we do want to stop is things that hurt U.S. interests, specifically in the South China Sea. We know how much passes through that sea with respect to trade. So I think it's important to say those things on the global stage when there's reporters from all these countries there. I'm glad the president did say that. And like I said, this is one of our oldest allies. And one thing I've been very hard on the president is about the way we treat allies with respect to these conferences. It's one of the things that I've made bones about with respect to Canada and Mexico. I don't feel like that's the way you should treat people, specifically on this continent, from an ally's perspective. But it's good to see that in the Indo-Pacific, he has kind of given a different tone and rhetoric with respect to India and his meeting with Modi. We know he has a good relationship with Modi, and what he's done now with the recent weeks with the Indonesia meeting, and then obviously now with the Philippines.
So, Tony, I'm also curious as to what you think about Trump saying that he doesn't mind if the Philippines gets along with China.
Well, again, I think that Mike's really right on the money here, that when you look at an adversarial relationship with anyone in the world, I'm seeing kind of a Nixon and China sort of arrangement here. And also to draw from Reagan, a bit of trust but verify. I have no issue with the United States engaging with diplomatic talks with anyone. Look at Iran, for example, in which the Trump administration sent over Steve Witkoff, who far more than I felt comfortable with, was essentially offering Iran everything but the kitchen sink if they agreed to certain standards in which the United States directly, not through some UN front group that has been accused of all kinds of things relating to aiding Hamas, for example, in the Israeli-Gaza war. These situations, specifically, the Trump administration sends diplomats over, sets a series of terms, often, again, far more nicely than perhaps I would be comfortable with adversaries. And then at the end of that diplomatic process, there is, if you don't agree to meet us somewhere halfway, then we'll take actions that are necessary for the people of the United States and her allies. And if that's how the United States is going to treat China, I say full steam ahead, forcing China to the negotiating table, not just on their economy, which again, almost leveled the Chinese economy due to the tariff talk earlier this year. Now we're looking at possible strengthening from Pete Hegseth's perspective, Secretary of Defense, in the United States military presence in the region. Again, if we're going to use diplomacy here in a way to say, feel free to work with whomever you want until that diplomacy breaks down, then we take action. Those are clear expectations from a presidential administration that I've seen in a very long time. And I'm cautiously optimistic at seeing this level of transparency. It's very strange to me.
Okay, Mike, let me ask you this. Do you think from China's perspective that this is actually a zero-sum game where if China sees the Philippines cozying up with the United States, it's seeing that the Philippines is cutting ties with China? Do you think China sees this as a zero-sum game?
You know, Don, as you were asking that question, I started thinking about recent conferences over the last couple of years that Putin has said those same exact words. I don't speak Russian, so I'm going to have to rely on translation. But he has said those same exact words in terms of NATO's influence, right, with respect to maybe infringing upon his borders. So the parallel there is, could China see that the United States is starting to make deals with people that are in the region that are, in essence, surrounding them? And what happened in the case of Russia, which we saw, they invaded their neighbor, along their borders. So that's not a direct reason why, but there are other reasons why with respect to what, Putin wants to do with the reunification of the Soviet Union. So could China see it as, maybe an act of aggression, or could they see it to a lesser extent as, all these partnerships are kind of drying up for us here in the Indo-Pacific? What other choice do we have, or who else can we rely on? I'm not sure how to take that, but I will say from the U.S. perspective, this is what you want to do. You want to make sure that you're treating your adversaries, back to what Tony was saying there, right? Like you want to make sure that you're set up in your position with respect to the other countries in the region that, hey, look, let's work on a partnership that is economically mutually beneficial to both of us. In exchange, we will help you in case the known adversary, to your point, Don, the elephant in the room, it's not the tariffs. The elephant in the room is Xi Jinping. So the elephant in the room, if that is the elephant right there, we will help you in case anything happens. We've seen it with Taiwan and the Biden administration with what they did with the CHIPS Act. Now we're seeing with President Trump kind of shoring up some of these other deals with respect to these countries that are in the surrounding areas of China. So I don't know how China would take it, but I do think that, I know how I would take it, that there are countries around me that, are potentially not friendly to me. So I don't know how I would react on that. Let's hope that China doesn't react in some certain way. But to Tony's point, let's hope they come to the bargaining table and say, dude, let's cut a deal, because at the end of the day, money does talk, and there's a lot of money to be made out there, specifically in the South China Sea.
So Tony, what do you think? I mean, if the Philippines is increasing its diplomatic ties with the U.S., is it cutting ties with China?
No, and I think this is actually one of the key things that a lot of people in the international community don't give Trump credit for on kind of a person-to-person ethos. Mike, if I wanted to insult you, if I really wanted to get under your skin, I wouldn't come on this segment and treat you very terribly. I would instead treat you with complete indifference. I don't know you. You don't measure up to me. Whatever it is you do, I don't care. And you see Trump on the international stage doing this. He's like, so what if the Philippines try to trade with China? What did Trump say? I don't care. I guess they can do whatever it is that they want. And this does, in fact, humiliate Xi's administration, because it's not saying, well, we need to be careful about the Soviets and whatever they think in regard to post-World War II philosophy. It's China can do whatever it wants. They're a failing economic power. They're a failing political power. Their Belt and Road Initiative was not enough. They can't build worth a hoot. They treat their citizens horribly. The slave labor camps are in political upheaval. And so if the Philippines thinks that it can get a little something from China, level at putting China below the Philippines on Trump's discussions here, now you have a situation in which Trump is essentially reshaping who is taken seriously in the Indo-Pacific and who is not. That goes back to what Mike said about the the prime minister regarding India and the Trump administration treating all of these Southeastern Asian allies as more useful to the United States in future development than Xi's Chinese Communist government. I believe that there is an indifference here that is pretty incredible.
Okay, Mike, let me get your reaction to what Tony said and his Trump impression.
Well, first off, Tony, it's not that good of an impression. A lot of people say it's the worst impression I've ever heard. But that's the Trump impression. That's the Trump impression. But I will say something about what Tony was mentioning about indifference. And that's something that does translate. I think Tony's right about this. And then I'm going to counter something that he said. He's right about that Trump on the global stage will play the indifference game, right? If I'm better than you and you want to do a relationship with me, I'm not going to capitulate to you. You have to capitulate to me, right? Like I'm the bigger dog in this room. So Trump tends to do that. Where I don't like that he does that is when he does it with friends of ours, good friends of ours. Let's keep using this analogy. Like with Carney, with Canada. Like this is my biggest critique with him. Like this is not the way to treat allies, specifically on this continent. And so that was my only critique with that. But I do agree with on the world stage, the indifference part of this. A lot of these partners need us more than they need them. The Philippines is a perfect example because of China's potential aggression into Taiwan or other parts of, out there in the Indo-Pacific. They know that they need to rely on U.S. military. And that's why this investment, that's why you see the 3-day President Marcos staying here for 3 days to meet with Pete Hegseth, to meet with Marco Rubio, to meet with President Trump. I think his comments were, we're looking for a bilateral, agreement here, not only on the tariffs, but on the military stuff, because he knows outside of the trade stuff and making money for the Philippines, he's going to need the U.S.'s help if anything were to happen to a communist country that is, not that far away from them, and they need to protect their own interests. So Trump is playing it the right way, and I'm happy personally just to see more relationships in the Indo-Pacific being forged with the United States.
Well, all right, we got to leave the conversation there for this week. Thank you both for coming on again.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you.
Coming up, Louisville, Kentucky dropping its sanctuary city policy. The mayor explains his decision, and Attorney General Pam Bondi reacts. We have that and more after the break.
All throughout your home, appliances and systems just wait for the worst time to break down and leave you with expensive repairs. Unless you have a plan from Choice Home Warranty.
All home appliances and systems have a breakdown clock, and when it expires, it will cost hundreds and potentially even thousands of dollars to fix or replace. That's why every homeowner should have a plan with Choice Home Warranty, like I do. For a low monthly fee, a Choice Home Warranty plan will cover your heating, air conditioning, plumbing, appliances, and more. Don't let an unexpected repair wreck your budget. With Choice Home Warranty, that covered repair is fixed or replaced for you.
Choice Home Warranty has been a great company to work with, and they've taken care of us. I would suggest anybody who lives in a home not to be in a home without him.
Avoid the ticking clock of home appliances and systems breaking down with a plan from Choice Home Warranty. Call now to get your first month free. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage. That's $200 in total savings.
With a nationwide network of over 25,000 technicians, I don't worry about how my next breakdown will be handled. With a click of a button, my claim is filed, and Choice Home Warranty starts the clock. They do the legwork, hiring the right technician and handling the cost of covered repairs and replacements. And check this out. For a limited time, you can get 1 month of coverage free. Did you hear me? Free. You can't beat that deal with a sledgehammer. But hurry, this offer is ticking away. Once the clock hits 0, poof, it's gone.
Don't fear the breakdown clock. Get a plan from Choice Home Warranty and get round-the-clock money-saving protection you can count on. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage, plus get your first month free. This offer won't last long.
Get your home protected. Call now.
Don't wait for an appliance or system to break down. Call before that happens. Call 800-983-3523. 800-983-3523.
Is deep sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritang Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritang Green Vegetable Omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
Federal health officials are cracking down on a major organ procurement organization after finding that staff began organ retrieval on some patients who were not confirmed dead. A government probe reviewed over 350 cases. It found more than 100 in which patients showed signs of life or had no recorded time of death when donation procedures began. The Department of Health and Human Services says the federally funded group also sought consent from family members who may have been under the influence of drugs or unable to fully understand the donation decision. The organization's name hasn't been released, but it operates in parts of Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia. Officials are now mandating the organization adopt new safety protocols, including stronger checks on brain death and clearer rules on when to pause or stop organ collection. HHS has also ordered the Organ Procurement and Transplantation Network to reopen a previously closed case on the same group. Broader reviews of other organ procurement organizations are also underway. Federal agents uncover a massive drug smuggling operation at Los Angeles International Airport. Nearly 300 pounds of methamphetamine were disguised as a shipment of solar panels. Customs and Border Protection officers made the discovery and announced the seizure Monday morning. Photos show officers cutting through duct tape and aluminum foil to expose the drugs. CBP says the shipment was headed for New Zealand. Agents say they were alerted by prior intelligence, which helped them intercept the meth before it could be exported. CBP hasn't said if anyone's been arrested yet. Louisville, Kentucky, doing away with its sanctuary city policies. This comes after a warning from Attorney General Pam Bondi. Here's what Democratic Mayor Craig Greenberg said today.
I've been assured by the United States Department of Justice that if we reinstate the 48-hour detainers for inmates who've been arrested for crimes, Louisville will be taken off the federal sanctuary city list. Accordingly, Metro Corrections will begin honoring the 48-hour federal detainers as soon as practical because the stakes are too high. In turn, Louisville will no longer be considered a sanctuary city by the federal government. This change in designation is critical.
An immigration detainer is a federal document that asks a jail to hold an illegal immigrant who is already in custody for a crime for extra time. This would allow the federal government to take custody of that inmate. The mayor says that cities on the sanctuary cities list are facing more immigration raids by ICE and could lose hundreds of millions of dollars in federal grants. He says he doesn't want that to happen to Louisville. Bondi applauded the decision, writing on X, quote, "This should set an example to other cities. Instead of forcing us to sue you, which we will without hesitation, follow the law. Get rid of sanctuary policies and work with us to fix the illegal immigration crisis." As Republicans continue to cheer their new tax and spending law, the Congressional Budget Office released new estimates on what it's expected to cost. However, Republicans are brushing off the report, saying it doesn't consider economic gains. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has the update.
A Congressional Budget Office report that was released on Monday says that the Republicans' One Big Beautiful Bill Act will increase the nation's deficit by $3.4 trillion. That's over 10 years. This is mainly due to massive tax cuts, which means less revenue for the federal government. Now, one of the reasons why Republicans were so adamant about getting this bill across the finish line and signed into law quickly is to prevent around a 22% tax increase on average American families.
All of this is real, positive change for American families. The kind that they are going to directly feel in their bank accounts, they're going to see it in their neighborhoods, and they're going to count on it for years to come.
But nevertheless, this new report does give Democrats more room to criticize this Republican bill and the potential impacts that it could have on the nation's debt, though the White House says this report does not show the full picture. Here's both sides.
Today, we got the news that the Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, confirms Donald Trump's big, ugly betrayal is going to kick at least 10 million Americans off their health insurance and spike our national debt by another $3.4 trillion.
One of the most fiscally conservative pieces of legislation for its size that has ever crossed through Capitol Hill. And the president wants to cut our deficit. That's why he's effectively using tariffs to bring more revenue into the United States to ultimately pay down our debt that has been created by presidents on both sides of the aisles for many, many decades.
And Republicans have routinely argued that this big bill is just one part of the equation when it comes to their overall economic plans. They've also argued that the Congressional Budget Office has continually gotten estimates wrong, particularly with regards to how tax cuts actually add to the revenue, they say, because these tax cuts will spur economic growth. But ultimately, which side is right, we'll have to wait and see, because these estimates are for 10 years down the line here, which is quite a long time. So ultimately, we'll have to wait and see how this bill plays out practically in real life. Reporting from Capitol Hill, Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
The Department of Labor is aiming to rewrite or repeal more than 60 workplace regulations. Changes range from minimum wage requirements to standards governing exposure to harmful substances. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on some of the proposed regulatory rollbacks.
Change is coming at the Labor Department. Labor Secretary Lori Chavez de Remer says the goal is to reduce costly, burdensome regulations imposed under previous administrations. Here are some of the rules the department could scrap. No minimum wage for home healthcare workers. The proposed rule would reverse changes made in 2013 under former President Barack Obama. Certain protections for migrant farm workers are under consideration as well. According to the Trump administration, most of those rules place unnecessary and costly requirements on employers. Regulations governing lighting for construction spaces and safety rules for mines are also under review. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, part of the Labor Department, is looking at other inherently risky industries as well. The General Duty Clause allows OSHA to punish employers for unsafe working conditions, even when there's no specific standard in place to cover a situation. The proposed guidelines would prevent the agency from applying the clause to, quote, inherently risky professional activities that are intrinsic to professional, athletic, or entertainment occupations. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Congressman Andrew Garbarino is expected to take the helm of the House Homeland Security Committee. The New York Republican would replace Tennessee Representative Mark Green. Garbarino won the approval of the House Steering Committee, an important panel that oversees committee assignments. The committee's vote will still need to be approved by the full House in a vote today. If confirmed by the House, Garbarino will oversee legislation and activities. Some agencies that will fall under his purview include the Transportation Security Administration, Customs and Border Protection, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Mark Green retired over the weekend, leaving Republicans with 219 seats to Democrats' 212. Green's seat is expected to stay Republican, with Trump winning his district by 22 points in the November 2024 presidential election. Elon Musk's X has refused to cooperate with the French investigation, calling it politically motivated. Musk has accused European governments of attacking freedom of speech and has expressed support for some of the region's right-wing parties. Here's what happened.
Elon Musk's X accused French prosecutors of launching a politically motivated criminal investigation on Monday. It comes after Paris prosecutors stepped up a preliminary probe into X earlier this month for suspected algorithmic bias and fraudulent data extraction. Police can now conduct searches, wiretaps and surveillance against Musk and X executives or summon them to testify. A judge could also issue an arrest warrant if they don't comply. The social media firm said the move threatens its users' free speech, and it also denied all allegations against it and said it wouldn't cooperate with the probe. X posted it believes the investigation is distorting French law in order to serve a political agenda and restrict free speech. X said it had refused a request for access to its recommendation algorithm and real-time data. The Paris prosecutor's office did not respond to accusations of political bias, but it confirmed it had sent a judicial request to X on July 19th asking for access solely to its algorithm. It said it had offered X a secure channel to share the information with investigators who would have confidential access to the data. The prosecutors said they had yet to receive an official response from the company. Failure to comply with the judicial request can lead to a fine or obstruction of justice charges. The French probe could deepen a rift between Washington and European capitals over what sort of discourse is allowed online. Senior US officials have alleged the censoring of right-wing voices around the world. Meanwhile, the European Commission has investigated X for breaching its digital transparency rules against illegal content since late 2023.
The State Department has confirmed to NTD a U.S. Commerce Department employee is trapped in China. It's the first known U.S. federal worker caught in Beijing's exit ban and the third foreigner reportedly blocked in just 1 week. We have that story and more when we come back.
My 15-year-old son, Ethan, and I had a fun and relaxing morning. We returned home, and Ethan walked to his best friend's house an hour later. I heard the ambulance scream by the street, carrying my beautiful boy. Ethan was shot in the head in his best friend's house with an unsecured gun. He had zero chance of survival. The father, the gun owner, he stored his 3 guns and bullets in a shoebox.
How do you feel?
That has to be the most horrific experience that a human could ever have.
David, would you give any advice?
First thing you do is not keep your ammunition with your weapons, and that your weapons need to be locked at all times.
When I never graduated from high school, I realized I wanted to go back to school because I didn't want to work these back-breaking jobs the rest of my life. With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed to come back to school. I felt accomplished, made me feel that I could take on whatever challenges life throws at you.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
Elmo's daddy taught him that when he has a big feeling like being frustrated, humming a song can help you feel better. Love your mind.
The Chinese Communist Party is blocking a U.S. government employee from leaving China. The State Department says the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office worker was visiting the country in a personal capacity. NTD's Daniel Monahan reports.
A U.S. government employee banned from leaving China. In a statement sent to NTD, the State Department said it is tracking the case very closely and is engaged with Chinese officials to resolve the situation as quickly as possible. It added that it has no higher priority than the safety and security of American citizens. The Washington Post reported on Sunday the U.S. citizen, who works for the Commerce Department, had traveled to China several months ago to visit family. Beijing has long used exit bans on both Chinese and foreign nationals, citing civil disputes, regulatory issues, or criminal probes. Analysts say the tactic is also used to stifle dissent and gain diplomatic leverage. In another exit ban case, an Atlanta-based banker working for Wells Fargo has also been prevented from leaving China. The incident threatens to amp up fears among Western executives about the potential consequences of visiting the Asian nation. Chinese authorities said Monday the exit ban on Wells Fargo executive Chen Yue Mao is tied to a criminal investigation. They have not specified the nature of the case or how Mao is allegedly involved. Mao has been employed by Wells Fargo since 2012, according to her LinkedIn profile. She was born in Shanghai and based in Atlanta. The executive leads Wells Fargo's international factoring business and advises multinational companies on cross-border capital strategies. Wells Fargo has since suspended all travel to China. Mao's case is the latest in a series of detentions and exit bans targeting foreign business people. On July 16th, a Beijing court sentenced a Japanese employee of Astellas Pharma to 3.5 years in prison for espionage. Authorities also raided U.S. firm Mintz Group's Beijing office in March 2023, detained its employees, and fined the company $1.5 million. The employees were released in March after 2 years in detention. The president of AstraZeneca China has been detained and investigated since December 2024 by the Chinese regime, and little information has been given about the investigation. And at the end of 2023, a senior banker at Japan's Nomura Holdings was banned from leaving China during his visit. The State Department currently has a level 2 travel advisory for China. It says Americans should exercise increased caution due to arbitrary enforcement of local laws, including in relation to exit bans. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
A Chinese American has pleaded guilty to stealing U.S. missile detection technology from China. California resident Chen Guanggong was arrested in February of last year. He admitted to transferring more than 3,600 files from a research and development company where he worked to personal flash drives and hard drives. The theft happened while Gong worked for HRL Laboratories. Some of the files transferred include blueprints for sophisticated infrared sensors designed for use in space-based systems to detect nuclear missile launches and ballistic and hypersonic missiles. Prosecutors say the government and others invested tens of millions each year for more than 7 years to develop the technology acquired by Gong. Gong faces a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison. And a special report coming soon on NTD. Join us as we uncover how the Chinese regime is extending its reach into American life, putting freedom at risk. Here are powerful first-hand accounts from those who lived it. Tonight at 9 p.m. ET, only on NTD. The United States said today it will again pull out of UNESCO, the UN's educational, scientific, and cultural agency. It says its involvement is not in the country's national interest and that the agency promotes anti-Israel speech. This decision comes just 2 years after the United States rejoined UNESCO after leaving in 2018 during President Trump's first administration. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce said the withdrawal was linked to UNESCO's perceived agenda to advance divisive social and cultural causes. She added in a statement that UNESCO's decision to admit the state of Palestine as a member state is highly problematic and contrary to U.S. policy. Bruce said the move also contributed to an increase of anti-Israel rhetoric in the organization. The decision will take effect at the end of December 2026. UNESCO's Director General said she deeply regrets the U.S. decision. She also denied accusations of anti-Israel bias. Russian and Ukrainian officials are set to hold another round of peace talks tomorrow. Moscow is declining requests from Kyiv for the presidents of the countries to meet directly. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazar has the latest, starting with an update on the battlefield situation.
A young kid is reported dead and at least 24 civilians are injured after a Russian attack early on Tuesday. Ukrainian officials say a Russian drone strike started a fire in a parking lot in Odessa, destroying several cars and damaging a nearby supermarket. A resident recounts that she managed to survive the attack.
The universe decided that today I'm supposed to stay alive and that my car has to burn out.
Also on Tuesday, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky renewed his offer to meet with Russia's Vladimir Putin. Officials from both countries are set to hold another round of talks in Turkey on Wednesday. A Kremlin spokesperson on Tuesday lowered the expectations for the upcoming meeting.
There's a lot of work to be done before we can talk about the possibility of some high and top-level meetings.
He added that Russia doesn't expect any breakthroughs to take place during the talks on Wednesday. And Ukraine's parliament on Tuesday voted to tighten restrictions on two key anti-corruption agencies. On Monday, a Ukrainian security agency arrested two officials from the National Anti-Corruption Bureau and the Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office. Tuesday's draft law would allow the general prosecutor to transfer cases from the two agencies and reassign prosecutors. Reducing corruption is a key requirement for Kiev to join the European Union, as well as to secure billions in Western aid. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Over the weekend, major cities across Canada held rallies and vigils to mark July 20th, the 26th anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party's campaign of persecution against Falun Gong. Here's a closer look.
In cities including Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, and Ottawa, participants marched with banners and held candlelight vigils to honor those persecuted in China. A passerby was moved to tears, recalling his own family suffering under tyranny.
Somebody needs to help rescue these people, or the government needs to fight them. They're not violent or committing crimes, and we should welcome them and give them solace or political asylum of some sort. And they're not criminals.
Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, is a traditional meditation practice based on the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. In July 1999, then Chinese Communist Party leader Jiang Zemin launched a brutal campaign to eradicate Falun Gong, fearing its 100 million followers outnumbering Communist Party members.
My mother was sentenced to a labor camp in China for handing out Falun Gong materials to people who didn't know the truth.
In 2018, I was arrested and detained in a detention center. While I was held there, they took my blood for testing. I later learned it was part of the Chinese regime's forced organ harvesting process.
Obviously, forced organ harvesting is extremely unethical, and this is illegal and immoral, so it's very upsetting.
It's a kind of eye-opening to know about this kind of activities that's happening in China. We have to stop those.
Canadian members of parliament voiced concerns, calling for actions against the Chinese regime's human rights abuses.
Today marks 26 years since the Chinese Communist Party began its brutal persecution of Falun Gong practitioners. Millions have faced detention and torture simply for their peaceful beliefs. On this solemn anniversary, I stand with Falun Gong practitioners in their pursuit of freedom and dignity.
Others emphasize that the crackdown is no longer confined to China, but is reaching across borders.
Hi, it's Dan Hughes, Member of Parliament for Flamborough, Lambert Grand North here, and I want to pass on this message about the increased transnational repression we're seeing against Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa.
The Chinese government, they are persecuting people in China, but they're also intimidating people outside the Chinese borders. They send agents here, in this country and other countries. This does not end within the borders of China. This is happening here as well. People get intimidated in this country by Chinese agents. We should never allow it.
We are here tonight, or this evening, to send a message to this government that we stand together with people in China, with people that are oppressed, jailed, sent to working camps, re-education camps, people that are subjected to terrible human parts harvesting. This should not be happening in this world.
NTD News, Canada.
Coming up, Ozzy Osbourne, who led Black Sabbath and became the godfather of heavy metal, dies at 76. We have that and more when we come back.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. You may know me from my many years on television. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I felt this slight pressure on my chest, just slight. I thought, oh, it's nothing, it'll go away. I didn't get it. I did not get it. But a few days later, while shopping at a boutique, that pressure returned, much stronger. It felt like an elephant pressing on my chest. I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I was rushed into surgery where I received 2 stents in my arteries. Stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. That's why I'm in front of you today, asking you to join me in supporting the American Heart Association by becoming a monthly donor. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough. Get the next person trained in CPR, the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. I can enjoy life with my children, my grandchildren, and my friends. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, and your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives. Please, listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did. So please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now. Join me as a monthly donor today and help save even more lives. Thank you.
Imagine a coffee that cares for your health. Expertly fermented with a 50 enzyme complex to enhance flavor and remove bitterness. Small batch roasted to a decadent medium dark, resulting in a brew that is gentle on digestion, low acid, and up to 90% less caffeine than regular coffee. Try America's first enzyme fermented coffee today.
Adopting you was the best decision in our life. And I am so proud to call you my son.
British singer and performer Ozzy Osbourne has died at the age of 76. He is best known as the lead singer of the death metal rock band Black Sabbath. Osbourne's family announced that he passed away this morning surrounded by his family. It comes just weeks after he reunited on stage with his bandmates in Villa Park, Birmingham in the UK. Osbourne had Parkinson's disease and had also suffered other health problems in recent years. Besides music, he was known for appearing in the reality TV show The Osbournes about his family life. Through his career, Osbourne won 5 Grammys and a number of other music-related awards. Nesting parties, homes turned into sanctuaries, and the rise of everyday rituals. These are just some of the new trends emerging as human behavior continues to change. NTD's Daniel Monahan spoke with the think tank director for a closer look at what's shaping how we live and connecting today.
Soon is a futures think tank focused on identifying shifts in human behavior and culture. Tatum Ambler, the futures director at Soon, says one trend that's gaining traction is something called nesting parties. People are trading wild nights out for cozy nights in, a shift she links to the lingering psychological effects of the pandemic.
We've got algorithm fatigue and a sensory deficit from life lived online, as well as just sort of general cultural overwhelm of everything that's happening. And these nesting parties are one response to that. So it's not that socializing has stopped, it's just that it's softened.
These gatherings are full of intentional ritual.
It's phone-free dinners, it's candlelit, tables, handwritten menus, curated playlists, maybe even a deck of tarot cards or conversation starters.
Ambler says living rooms are being transformed into book clubs, pop-up bakeries, or personalized cafes.
We want places where we can sort of turn up and actually be in real and relaxed ways. So yeah, it turns out we don't necessarily want a stage. We want soft lighting and real conversation. But it's not necessarily about opting out. It's just opting in deeper and wanting richer experiences, more intimate experiences.
Another trend, homes as sanctuaries. Ambler says many people are designing their homes not just for function, but to restore their emotional well-being.
And we've very much moved from the sort of minimalism to warm maximalism. So mid-century wood tones, earthy palettes, layered lighting. It's, you know, they're dominating our feeds and also our moods. So design trends are embracing neuroaesthetics to shape and also soothe our emotional state. So whether that is biophilic design, bringing the outdoors in, color drenching with deep tones to soothe or energize, and modular spaces that can flex with our moods and also our needs.
This craving for comfort and connection is also showing up in the way people approach routine tasks.
Things like take the Sunday reset is gone from a cleaning trend to a cultural movement with 1.3 billion views on TikTok. So we're really romanticizing the mundane, whether that is sort of cleaning, skincare, meal prep, or just sort of small catch-ups, more incidental catch-ups with friends. They're becoming micro meditations and very much part of a bigger shift of manual living. So we're looking for the antidote to algorithmic fatigue and a bit of a rebellion against the doom scroll.
As life online gets more overwhelming, many are turning to slower, more meaningful ways to connect and unwind. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Coca-Cola is adding a cane sugar version of its trademark cola to its U.S. lineup this fall. The announcement follows President Donald Trump's recent statement on the popular soda. Trump said last week that Coca-Cola had agreed to use real cane sugar instead of high fructose corn syrup. Coca-Cola announced today it will continue to produce corn syrup versions, but is adding a sugar cane option to its lineup. Chairman and CEO James Quincy said Coke will expand its product range to, quote, reflect consumer interest in differentiated experiences. Coke currently sells Mexican Coke, which is made with cane sugar, in the U.S. The news comes as Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. takes aim at highly processed food products, including high fructose corn syrup. Coming up, a U.S. citizen has been banned from leaving China, renewing concerns over doing business in the communist state. We discuss with a U.S.-China analyst. Stay with us.
The bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again. Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money-saving coupons. Our counselors will help you choose the right product. And unlike stores, we're always in stock. You'll get what you need. Satisfaction guaranteed. HDIS, the better way.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog, $45 in money-saving coupons, and free product samples, call 1-800-701-6159. That's 1-800-701-6159.
All throughout your home, appliances and systems just wait for the worst time to break down and leave you with expensive repairs. Unless you have a plan from Choice Home Warranty.
All home appliances and systems have a breakdown clock, and when it expires, it will cost hundreds and potentially even thousands of dollars to fix or replace. That's why every homeowner should have a plan with Choice Home Warranty, like I do. For a low monthly fee, a Choice Home Warranty plan will cover your heating, air conditioning, plumbing, appliances, and more. Don't let an unexpected repair wreck your budget. With Choice Home Warranty, that covered repair is fixed or replaced for you.
Choice Home Warranty has been a great company to work with, and they've taken care of us. I would suggest anybody who lives in a home not to be in a home without him.
Avoid the ticking clock of home appliances and systems breaking down with a plan from Choice Home Warranty. Call now to get your first month free. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage. That's $200 in total savings.
With a nationwide network of over 25,000 technicians, I don't worry about